So here we are in line 105, and we're in the middle of the simile where Homer compares Nausicaa to the goddess Artemis, the virgin goddess Artemis, the goddess of hunting. And in the end of the previous section we saw Artemis in the mountains chasing deer and wild boar and having a lot of fun doing so, just as Nausicaa is having a lot of fun playing with her maids on the beach. And now, in extending the simile, we have here in line 105 the nymphs, nymphae. Now the nymphs, who are, as Homer tells us, the Kurai, the daughters Dios of Zeus, Aigiokoio of Aegis-bearing Zeus. These nymphs are minor goddesses. They are, though they are divine, they're not. Their status is very inferior to that of Artemis, who is one of the 12 Olympian gods. But Artemis is attended by these nymphs. That's what this word hammer means here in actual fact. Hammer plus the dative, and we have the dative first word, tei, together with Artemis, the nymphs. Nymphs, I think there's no article actually, is there? Nymphs, the daughters of Aegis-bearing Zeus. Now the Aegis was some sort of shield which was more than anything a symbol of Zeus's authority, and Aegis-bearing, this adjective at the end of the line. Remember, this oio ending is a Homeric genitive, and it goes with Dios, which is the genitive of Zeus, as you know. So the daughters of Aegis-bearing Zeus is an adjective commonly applied by Homer to Zeus in the way that Athene is bright-eyed, and Hector is horse-taming, and Achilles is swift-footed. So Zeus is very often Aegis-bearing. So together with Artemis, nymphs, the daughters of Aegis-bearing Zeus, paiddusi, there's the verb, they play. Now if you remember, if you look back to the narrative before the simile started, Nausicaa and her maids were playing ball with a ball, and the same verb was used, paidsto. Now that is Homer's way of making the connection between the story, the narrative, Nausicaa and her maids playing on the beach, and the simile, Artemis and her nymphs also playing. The repetition of the verb there is deliberate to connect the simile with the narrative. This word here at the beginning, agronomoi, it means, I suppose, it looks a masculine, the ending, but in fact it's feminine, and it describes the nymphs. The nymphs are country nymphs. Agros is a field. They are the country nymphs, the daughters of Aegis-bearing Zeus, play together with Artemis. And then at the end of the second line we have something odd tagged on, and we have a new character. Leto rejoices in her heart. Now if you know your Greek mythology, then you'll know that Leto is the mother of Artemis, and she rejoices in seeing her daughter having such fun hunting in the mountains with her attendant nymphs. Interestingly enough, in the next line, parzaon, clearly feminine with the alpha, parzaon, hyper. Hyper means above, and it takes the genitive, above them all. But, and prepositions of course normally go in front of their noun. Here it goes after them all above. And the advantage of that for Homer is that it puts parzaon first word. It's very emphatic. Artemis is taller than all her attendant nymphs. Above them all, Hege, this is Artemis. Artemis has, but we'll probably say holds her head and her face above them all. Now, so I suppose what Homer is saying is that Artemis is taller than her attendant nymphs, and this, I suppose, reflects her higher status, and she's one of the main Olympian gods, not just a minor deity. And also, in actual fact, I think the Greeks would have seen her height as enhancing her beauty. Above them all, Artemis held her head and her face. And, I suppose, the tet there, this is a strange verb, pelomai, obviously a middle verb, and it's a Homeric verb, and it's the equivalent of the verb to be. And this just means she is. It's the present tense. Notice that these verbs in the simile are all present tense. And these aren't historic presents. This is what Artemis and her nymphs are always doing. So she is pelotai, easily. You know ra idios, meaning easy in prose, and you've got an initial row and a rough breathing, but that's about the only connection you've got with the normal prosaic word for easy. And she is easily recognised, arignoter. I think we need to supply something like although they are all beautiful. It's interesting that she is easily recognised. The Greek says, and they are all beautiful. Whereas we need to add a bit more than the and. We need to say, although they are all beautiful, Artemis is easily recognised. Now that's the end of the simile. And then to show that we are resuming the narrative, Homer uses this word hose at the beginning of 109, and it means in such a way, or in just such a way, Herge, now this must be Nausicaa now, in just such a way, Nausicaa, the Parthenos Admes, the unmarried maiden, the unmarried virgin, here's the verb, imperfect tense, stood out, or was standing out, amphipoloisi, among her maids. And this makes it clear then, doesn't it, that, or two of the basic comparisons between Nausicaa and Artemis, they're both attended by lower status females, Nausicaa by her maids, Artemis by her nymphs, and they are both unmarried virgins. Okay, 110. But Allah, an alpha has been elided at the end, but when Emela, she was about to, and we know the verb mellow from our GCSE vocab list, but when she, this is Nausicaa, was about, here's the infinitive, to return, Palin means back, to return back homewards. Notice the de on the end of oikon. That de as a suffix often has the sense of towards. You may remember Athenad's de, towards Athens. Okay, but when Nausicaa was about to return back homewards, having yoked, the alpha has been omitted from the end of the participle there, zeuxasa, having yoked the mules, and having folded the fine clothes. Now, notice that the alpha on the end of chuxasa and the alpha that's been aligned at the end of zeuxasa are both feminine singular, referring to Nausicaa. Now, Nausicaa probably didn't yoke the mules herself. One of the maids will have done that. She probably didn't fold the clothes herself. But Homer portrays, grammatically, Nausicaa is the one who does these things. She's the one who's decided that now is the time to return home. She's the one who's yoked the mules and folded the clothes. So even though she didn't yoke the mules and didn't fold the clothes, probably, she's in charge. She's directing these actions. She's very much the boss. And this is something we need to notice about the character of Nausicaa. So, when she was about to go home, having yoked the mules and having folded the clothes, then enter. Now, notice that this Allah here in line 112 is not but, as it was in line 110. What's omitted on the end of this al is Allah. It's the neuter of allos, another thing. Then the goddess, bright-eyed Athene, thought another thing. Now we can't say thought another thing, we're going to have to say something like had another idea. Now Athene, Odysseus' patron, is looking after Odysseus. She's engineered this meeting between Nausicaa and Odysseus, and now in actual fact it could go wrong. The washing is finished, the clothes are dry, Nausicaa is about to return home, and no encounter has taken place. So Athene has to step in again and somehow arrange for Odysseus to wake and see Nausicaa and encounter her. So what must Athene do? So she had another idea. And then we have hose and a groitor, an optative, and another octative in idoi, and in actual fact there's a third octative in the last line, hergesaito. And these are purpose in actual fact. She has another idea so that Odysseus might wake up and see the beautiful girl who, and notice the hair there has got the accent, so it's the relative pronoun who would then lead him. The word for him is hoi. It's very strange. Hoi is the equivalent, as I tell you in the notes, of autoi. It's a dative, because the verb hergeomai at the end of the line takes the dative. It's a very, very strange Homeric usage, this use of hoi, which you're used to as a definite article. It's not a definite article, and it's not masculine nominative plural. It's the equivalent of autoi. It's dative singular. Who would lead him to the city. There's no pros there. You just have pollen, the accusative. To the city of the Phaeacian men. So how is Athene going to engineer this meeting? What's she going to do? Well, Basileia there, you know Basilus meaning a king. Basileia I suppose can mean a queen sometimes, but it's not the queen here, it's the princess, it's Nausicaa. Nausicaa then, epeta, threw, ripto is the verb, threw, I think we'll say the ball, sphaira, because it has been mentioned earlier on, we were told, I forget in which line, that the girls are playing with a ball. So the princess then threw the ball, met Amphipollon. Now meta, usually of course, means after or with. Here it's going to mean towards Amphipollon, one of her maids. It's singular. So the princess then threw the ball towards one of her maids, but she missed the maid. Hamartano is the verb, which I think is a GCSE verb. This is the aorist. But she missed the maid. It takes the genitive case hamartano, hence amphipolu, and threw it, ballo, and threw it in a deep pool. So, as often happens in ball games, the ball doesn't always go where it's intended to go, and that's what happens here. And the girls, the maids, in reaction to this, they Well, they make some sort of sound. Probably scream is the best translation. Haide. And the maids, here's the verb, ausan. Notice that the breathing is on the alpha. It's not a diphthong there, it's alpha and then an upsilon, ausan. And it has those two vowels and the sigma. There is some sort of onomatopoeia going on there. We're meant to hear something of the sound that the girls make. I think we'd say they screamed. Epimacron, I think, would probably be something like they screamed loudly. And the girls screamed loudly. Not out of any particular anxiety, just out of high spirits, I suppose. But it's the loud scream, of course, which is going to wake Odysseus. And if you look at this line here, line 117, it's clearly split in two by the with the punctuation, the right in the middle of the line there. So you have the girls in the first half of the line, and then you have hot de Dios Odysseus, noble Odysseus, in the second half of the line. So the girls screamed loudly, and Odysseus, noble Odysseus, awoke. And that's the de, I suppose. Sitting up, heads dominos, he considered. Hormino is the verb, not a verb you'll be familiar with. Now, notice this is the first time we meet Odysseus in Book 6, and it's interesting that he's a great warrior, but his primary characteristic in Homer is that of a thoughtful, intelligent, considerate, wily man. He considers. A lot of warriors, they think, they shoot before they think, but that's not Odysseus's way. He thinks and then he acts. And here he is doing just that. Sitting up, he considered kataphrena kai katathumon, in his mind and in his heart. And then we have a little speech. You can see the speech marks at 119 and finishing at the end of the passage, 126. And Homer likes direct speech. For one thing, it gives us a stronger sense of the character of the person if you can hear their actual words. And we hear the emotions of the person too. We'll see that Odysseus is a bit pissed off, to be honest, to be confronted yet again with more problems to deal with. He's unsure how to react, but he's also courageous in the face of the unknown. In actual fact, he doesn't know that the girls in Nausicaa present no threat to him. He's not aware of that. I suppose also the direct speech also has the benefit that it changes the narrative. Instead of Homer describing things in a third-person narrative, we have the characters themselves. The third-person narrative becomes a first-person narrative. You see at the beginning of line 119 we have ego, we have I. Okay. So what does Odysseus say? Well, he says "oi moi," quite a common phrase in tragedy, especially. It's usually translated something like "alas." Now we don't use "alas" these days in English. It's an expression of deep grief and pain. I don't know whether there's a modern equivalent. We'll have to say something like "alas for me." It's terribly old-fashioned, but it will do as a translation. But you must remember that it's an expression of, as I say, deep pain and grief. What does Odysseus say? Well, he asks a question. He says, "To the land of what mortals am I come? Aute is the interesting word, this time. Odysseus has had so many adventures since leaving Troy. He's met the Lotus Eaters, he's met Calypso, he's met Circe, he's met Polyphemus, and now he's on a new strange land with strange people. Are they going to be friendly or aggressive? And there's almost a sort of sense of resignation here in Odysseus' tone of voice. To the land of what people am I come this time? It's as if he's saying, oh, not again. And then in 120 he suggests to himself that they may be unpleasant people, and then in 121 he suggests that maybe they are nice people. So he says, are they hybristai? Now you know the word hubris from Herodotus in actual fact. We're going to say something like uncivilized. Are they uncivilized and savage and not just? Or are they philoxenoi? An interesting adjective, isn't it? Friendly to strangers. And is their mind, noos, God-fearing? Theoudes. Is their mind God-fearing? Is the mind to them? I think we'll probably say sphin, by the way, is the same as autois, to them. So I think we'll probably say, or are they friendly to strangers, and do they have a God-fearing mind? Question mark. Okay, 1, 2, 2. Then we have an interesting word, hose, which means something like as if. And Odysseus says, it is as if the female scream of girls surrounded me. So he's actually, he was asleep, and this sound has woken him up. And so he's not got a clear notion of exactly what it is he heard, hence the note of uncertainty which hose provides at the beginning of the line. It's as if. This word auter is obviously connected to the verb we had up here in 117, auo. Okay, so this is the noun, a scream. It's as if the female, this adjective therlus means female, it's as if the female scream of girls surrounded me. Now if it's going to be girls, there are two possibilities. There could be nymphs, and nymphs were believed to inhabit remote country places, the sort of place that, just the sort of place that Odysseus has been washed up. Or if they're not nymphs, then they are humans, girls. So he tackles the first possibility first. Nymphs, perhaps, who, well, it says have, but I think we'd probably say something like inhabit the high peaks of mountains and the springs of rivers and, I suppose, grassy meadows. So nymphs are either they inhabit the peaks of mountains, remote country places, or the springs of rivers, which I suppose is where he is now, where the river runs into the sea, and it's at that point the girls have been washing the clothes, and the grassy meadows. Maybe they are nymphs. Or, I think we're going to translate the word poo here, which is, it's not the question word, meaning where, and it's not the indefinite meaning somewhere. It's a particle in actual fact, and we'll translate it something like perhaps, or perhaps I am, skedon is near, takes the genitive, I'm near people, anthropon. And then we have this adjective at the end, genitive plural going with anthropone, and this is an adjective that means with the power of speech, or perhaps I am near people with the power of speech. Question mark. So Odysseus has asked himself various questions here. To what land have I come? Are they nice people? Are they nasty people? Are they nymphs? Are they humans? He's asked himself a series of questions, and these questions show us his uncertainty and his confusion. And of course the only way he's going to find out the answer to these questions is to actually go and search out the origin of this sound. And that's what he says at the end. He says, Allah, that's but come on. And that's Odysseus encouraging himself. But come on. Egon is just ego, I. I suppose it's got an N on the end because of the vowel following it. We have here at the end of the line two, it doesn't look like it, well, idomai looks like an aorist subjunctive, obviously, but peirasomai does not. But we must translate them both as aorist subjunctives and say, let me try and see for myself. Notice the autos at the end there. I myself. Let me try and see for myself. So, and what we have there, of course, is Odysseus. He is the hero, and he's very self-reliant. He doesn't need people to help him. He's, on the contrary, he's the person who helps other people. And here he is with the autos, egon autos, I myself. Saying, well, there's only one way to find out the answer to these questions. Let's go and find out. Let's go and confront whatever is waiting for me. And I suppose in some ways there might be a bit of humour there on Homer's part, because we know as the reader that the only thing that Odysseus is going to confront is Nausicaa and her maids. But Odysseus, of course, doesn't know that. There could be a very serious threat to him, and he's pretty much defenceless. He's naked, he's by himself, he's vulnerable, and so that there is an odd contrast here between Odysseus's caution and concern and anxiety and confusion with what we know to be the situation which he's going to meet.